Hello, everybody. Tyler James here, and welcome to a special comics launch live stream. I have a great topic for you today. We're going to be talking about expanding your product line beyond comics, opportunities, challenges, obstacles, and how to really go after it when you take an audience that you have for your comic book properties, and then how you can expand your product offerings into other things. And so I have a really great guest in my good pal Rob Multari that I'm going to bring on in just a second to share with that and to dive into that. I did want to just call out, in case you haven't grabbed it yet, if you are new to the world of comics and crowdfunding and you want to jump in and maybe try this, try your hand at the Kickstarter thing, but you are not sure what steps to take first or where to go, I want to encourage you to go grab a resource that we have available. It is the comic book Kickstarter roadmap. You go over to comicslaunch.com/roadmap. This is a free guide that will walk you through the steps in a nice high overview, and then also will get you on the Comics Launch VIP email list so that I can keep sending you really good resources and sharing some of the great stuff that we've done over the past 7 years in terms of the podcast and other trainings that we put together for you. So definitely take advantage of that if you haven't already. All right. I am to get rolling with today's topic because our topic today is expanding your product line beyond comics. And my guest today is the founder and publisher of Lone Wolf Comics and the writer of the ongoing supernatural comic book series Nightwolf and its successful spin-off series Snowpaw, which have both been successfully funded on Kickstarter. He brings a strong background in graphic design and digital marketing and web development, and he is always continuing his process of growing as a creator and as a comic book publisher. So I'm excited to have Rob Multari back on the show. Rob, how you doing, my friend?
Very good. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate you bringing me on to talk about this. I can't be happier with how things are going. I thought it would be it's still a little bit of an uphill battle, but it's not. It's actually doing better at this point than I thought it would be. Doing the plush.
Nice. Yeah. Well, so for Comics Launch listeners, if they've been listening for a while, they've kind of been charting your journey over the years. I think when you first came on the show, so our discussion was sort of how you took what you learned, sort of just throwing out a launch for your big project and your dream project without having done a lot of research on what would make a Kickstarter successful, and that launch didn't succeed, but then you stuck with it. You relaunched down the line. You put more skin in the game, and since then you've been able to successfully fund all 6 issues of Nightwolf plus an awesome hardcover. You've got a spin-off series, and now I guess the next logical step is expanding the product line a little bit. And so I guess where I want to start with you today is just about what are you launching here? What's new on this Kickstarter launch for this latest Nightwolf campaign, and why was this something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so basically what I originally decided to do with this plushie was it was kind of a happy accident. So what's new with the campaign is that we are launching a 12-inch plush doll, and also 6 new connecting covers celebrating Nightwolf's 5th anniversary from the first issue being printed. So I wanted to do something special for the anniversary, and I thought the connecting covers was a great way to do that. To give something unique and new to like the current issues that are already out there. Plus the plushie here, as you can see, was inspired by this pinup. And for those of you listening to the podcast later, so you can't see the pinup, but there's a pinup in the Nightwolf Volume 1 trade paperback that has the twin witches that are featured in my series. They're holding up a voodoo doll of Nightwolf. And a lot of people, were like, "Oh, it's a cute design," and that was Megan Alford who did the pinup, and she came up with that little voodoo doll plushie, and I was like, "That's awesome! Let's keep that." And then people loved it, so that was like something that like I could have, put together for this plushie particularly, that was the basis for it. And when I was putting out, I constantly put surveys out to my wolf pack after Kickstarters and ask, hey, what would you like to see? What would I have these ideas. Would you like to see this, this, and this? And plushie was one of the things that had come up. And I had been following, your C is for Cthulhu for a while. My daughter loves the Cthulhu plushies and loves the board books. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for Jovi, that's my daughter there, to maybe something like that. And so we got the prototype made, and I gave her the plush, and she was playing with it and loved it. So I thought, all right, well, we might have something here. So that was kind of like where we kind of stem from, just trying something different. I even was trying, along with this campaign, I was trying to get 3D printed models. You and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
Still working on finding a more affordable way of producing them. I have, models already 3D printed for those as well. But producing them at a larger quantity is a little pricey. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah. So we'll jump into the 3D models, but I want to stick with the plush toys a little bit and make this super actionable for creators out there who maybe have harbored that dream of always seeing their characters into a plush toy thing. So all right, so this and I love the story that, hey, this was kind of a concept that came up from one of the artists that you pulled on for a variant cover, and it's like, oh yeah, a cool little, like, a voodoo doll, and what if we turn that into something real? So you work with Skeleton Crew Studios on this plush toy, who's the same Israel Skeleton, Catherine Skeleton. They're amazing. We work with them for all of the Seed for Cthulhu stuff. But talk to me about like the process of going from, oh, here's a little thing on a pinup, to here's a doll that I can put in my daughter's hand.
Right on. Yeah. So I reached out to the Skeleton Crew. They had done pins for me in the past, and based on your recommendation for that, and I knew that they they do great quality work, and you've worked with them for your Siege for Cthulhu. So I was like, I wanted to see something quality like that. So I reached out to them and asked if they were available to do something, and I said, what do you need from me to put out this plushie? And basically they said, the front, back, side views, the color schemes, the details. So I went back to Megan and I said, hey, what would you think if we did something with that voodoo doll that you came up with and made it a plush toy? And she loved the idea for it. And I was like, so what, how much would it be to, basically put out this, front, back, side view with all the color palettes and all that? She gave me her rate, and I was like, do it. Let's go. Let's move.
Yeah. It's pretty standard thing, the turnarounds that most artists are, could be able to do. Okay. So, but it's cool that you went back to the original artist.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have gone to anybody else for this. She's the one who came up with the idea. I wanted to make sure she was fine with me taking the idea of this plush, well, the voodoo doll anyway, and then turning it into a plush. And, that's, so she whipped these up, and she was very ecstatic, very happy that like one of her like illustrations is becoming this 3D plush. And then like her and I are actually talking together. I had mentioned about doing a kid's board book at some point if this goes well with the plush and it's well received. Her and I are actually in the works of making a board book featuring this voodoo doll. And then to kind of explain like the story that we've come up to explain its background.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So you reached out to the artist, got the turnarounds, sent that over to Skeleton. What happened then?
So it was a really quick turnaround. Catherine reached back out and was like, I love this, the designs, the details, these are great. Handed them off to their team to start with the development of the prototype. We went through we didn't do any revisions. She gave me the first, which was without the colors. It was basically the first stitching like all the detail, but without all the colors, just to kind of get it right. And I was like, that's spot on. I mean, that's perfect. So then they came back with the actual prototype with the actual colors, and I approved it immediately. I mean, as soon as I saw it, it was like that's it. I mean, you nailed it on the head right away. And then, she shipped the original prototype to me. And I've been taking pictures and videos of Jovi playing with it and taking it to stores and stuff, and while she was playing it, doing different things just to to be able to use.
Yep.
And it was like I said, I even like the detail, like, so I'm I have it right here, and like even the detail, like you can't really tell from the screen, but like you could probably see a little bit of the embroidered nose, mouth, the eyebrows,
Yeah.
the X's on the eyes, like everything, like all the detail on this thing is like so much more than you could actually see through video or through picture. I mean, it's in the velveteen feel to it. It's definitely something that came out like beyond my expectations of how good this came out.
Yeah.
So I was super thrilled with it. All that, and it just, it was just so. I was so happy and ecstatic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, okay, and roughly, and what you described there is essentially making the prototype. And can you give a rough estimate about how much just to go from like to get the prototype itself made cost you?
Yeah, I want to say, so it was $300 to get the prototype made, and then shipping across, I think, was only like maybe $30 or something like that, or maybe less than that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Skelton works with factories in China that are set up for sort of mass production, and they.
I think I lost volume. I'm not sure if it's me or you.
I lost volume for a second.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I can hear you now.
I think my my microphone malfunctioned.
I lost you again, I think. Or you still working with it?
Yeah, my microphone, I think, went kaput.
No.
So,
oh well.
And there goes my camera. Yeah. All right. So, am I still going here?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah. All right. Technical difficulties, but we made it work. So yeah. So this is a process, and one of the reasons I want to talk to you, because I've actually just went through this process again for a new line of plush toys that are going for the Sea of Cthulhu brand. Here's one of them. We actually did we did 4. We've only talked about 3. So one of them is sort of like tucked away as a stretch goal that we're hoping to surprise our audience for. But
that's the one I voted for.
Yeah, this was actually this was I think number 2. This was like our number 1 top vote getter, the Shuggoth. But this guy's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool that you were able to get it done or get your prototype right in sort of, right off the bat. This one, I think we had 2 iterations. We went up to like 4 different iterations on some of the plush toys. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer to just get it nailed down, or like you see something and or something that you had in 2D doesn't actually work in 3D or something like that. But cool that yours was able to be nailed, because yours is actually kind of a complex design.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just looking at like Megan's design layout that she had, I think it was so detailed. That, like I said, they nailed it, and I mean, I was shocked at how quickly that went, and I'm sure that's not, like you said, that's not the case often or all the time. And if I do a product like the next ones are going to be probably more like if things all go according to plan, I plan on having more that's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to handle than this. But like, yeah, I mean,
yeah. And so cool. So to actually get a prototype, to get something in your hands, a single thing in your hands, is actually not that difficult especially when you're working with great people like Skelton and an artist that can think visually.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge, I think, with plush toy launches that creators should be aware of is that the sort of next step to go from, all right, we've got the prototype, all right, now you want to offer this to the market. And so what are some of the challenges? Like what's the challenge what's the challenge there from your perspective? Because I know what it is from my end,
Yeah, I think so. Like, going to Kickstarter and then trying to market the plushie to the larger audience of comic book, because people know me as doing comic books, and I do fairly successfully at that as well. But this also isn't for a new issue, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't. People had asked, "Oh, well, can you run it with the next issue when it comes out?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't, because to have one fund, I needed this to be able to fund to be able to produce these." And so that's kind of like why I did a separate. Then, like when issue 7 comes out this spring on Kickstarter, I wanted to make sure that this funded, and I was able to then produce them and put them out.
And part of the reason for that is to work with the factory. These factories do have like a minimum order requirement, right? So
yes, yeah.
This isn't the kind of thing where like, oh, well, if only 10 sold, I just make 10 and we're good, right?
Right, exactly. And that's just it. It came down to like I had to meet the minimum, and then the shipping, and then so that was like, to be able to do it, I couldn't even do it as an add-on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't do like a short run or anything. And so that's why I had to do it separately. And so that way it was hard marketing it, and it still is harder marketing it to like my larger fan base. As you can see right now, there's 84 backers, and like I think my highest backed is like over 700. Even the last couple, I think I had like 600, 500 backers. So it's not something that's widely asked for, but again, there's people who were interested in it. Plus, the other difficulty is it came from the sexy pinup. So it's for me, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm marketing this currently to my current fans, my audience, my wolf pack, if you will. Before I then go for like that's with the kids board book, and then market it with this together will be a totally separate thing. So that's finding that audience and trying to get into like the younger audience is going to be the challenge as well. Because I'm also in both, moving into both spaces, the adult and the child or children's space, and trying to make them both happy at the same time. Eventually I'm going to have to like go 2 different routes. So finding a new audience and bring them in without them being afraid of what's like, oh, this is a scary supernatural thing with witches and sexy pinup art. Which it's not really this. It was so cute despite like the what it is. You know what I mean? Like it just so it had to happen.
Yeah. Well, so then so the understanding is that because the order your minimum order number is a certain amount, there's going to be an outlay of cash for these things. And so I found this as well with Seas for Cthulhu. Had we offered a plush toy with the very first launch, that it would have chewed up so much of the resources there, which is why we made it a separate sort of follow-up launch. And we also had the same thing. We probably had half as many backers for our plush toy launch than we did for the new book by itself. And we've sort of seen that, our book launches tend to be significantly higher. Our new book launches tend to be significantly higher than the, higher margin plush toy only launches or plush toy mainly launches. But as long as it's, but the nice thing is it's because it's a higher margin item and everything, it's still a pretty solid, your average pledge levels up there. So that can be pretty good. But I like what you did to have something new, even if it wasn't a new issue, that the people in your fan base that are comic book collectors and could care less about the plush toys or the other things, but they, are stands for comics. And this is in the form of a connecting covers. So talk to me a little bit about the connecting cover concept and how you came up with that as an offering that you could pair with this launch to maybe bring back some people that might not have just come for the plush.
Yeah. So originally, when I was coming up with the connecting idea, it was more for for collector cards. But then I was like, I remember as a kid getting like the Ninja Turtle cards where there was like a 9-piece that would have a scene, and on the other side there was something else. And then I remember stapling them together as a kid so that I had like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that, and then there was a couple, I think there was like X-Men cards like that, and some, I think Batman cards like that. I just remember that feeling as a kid, like getting all of those and then finally like putting them together. And I hadn't seen anything like that I've seen connecting covers, like 1, 2, 3 or whatever, but I hadn't seen anything recently that had it like where there's like a full scene on 6 or more copies. Or even like, collector's cards lately that I haven't even seen anything like that. So I was like, well, why don't I take that to the next step and do it on a new comic? Because I wanted to do, like I said, something special for the 5th anniversary.
Yeah.
And to me, the fact that like there was these 6 issues, I had these characters all associated with those said issues, and I was like, this seems to be, it would make more sense. It'd be, a very limited print run, a virgin variant cover with the connecting covers so that you can get the full scene. And that was kind of like where I was like, all right, well, that's what it was gonna be. And not to kind of backslide to the 3D models, but like originally too, like again, this was supposed to be originally launched with those 3D models as well. These were going to be like their backdrops, because these are the characters that I got modeled.
Okay.
So like it was all like intertwined. Like I was like, okay, going to have the plushie, going to have the 3D characters, going to have this, So
yeah, it was all a perfect plan, and then and we'll get into some of the monkey wrenches that went into that. But kudos to the design for this, because the challenge with connecting covers often is, well, that each cover should also work as its own cover, right?
Yeah.
And then also, how do you make the backgrounds connect? But I actually love what you guys did with the perspective and the way the background comes together. Was this did you have this concept in mind, or did you just turn it over to Carlos and say, hey, figure this out, or how was that process for this?
So the way basically the only information I gave him was that I am like top row, like issue 1 has to be Tartarus, issue 2 has to be the Twin Wishes, issue 3 has to be Black Claw, issue 4 has to be Snowpaw, issue 5 has to be Nightwolf, and issue 6 has to be Vampiress Anne Marie. And that was basically the gist of what I said. And I told him, like, listen, I'm like, this is going to be connecting covers, so somehow they have to interact with each other, and based on what of the series, the characters that that you and I developed together, go. And yeah, he came up with this. We worked on rough sketches first, and then as he was doing the sketches, we put them together. Like I was looking at them all together in Photoshop, and I'm like, okay, I can see where we're going with this, and I keep going. So we did it in steps. So we did a background after he did the characters, and then once the 2 were put together, I'm like, all right, let's go. We're coloring this. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong piece there, and the virgin idea definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I thought having the dressing on there would make it more difficult for him. And I didn't want it to be too hard trying to finagle to get it on there. Plus, I feel it would take away from where the seams are connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it was like it was a no-brainer to have it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Question coming in from YouTube. Cayetano asks, when you order, do you get more than what is needed for the Kickstarter campaign, or do you order more to be able to sell at conventions? So you're back at conventions now with the impressive Nightwolf setup, which I'm assuming you're going to become even more impressive once you add the plush toys and other things. And so, what's your ordering philosophy, especially when it comes to either some of these exclusives or these limited edition things?
Yeah, so for the variants, like particularly this variant, I set it at 200. That's like, so each issue is going to have 200 of these copies here. This is going to be a Kickstarter only, so you can't get them at cons. If there's any left over from this, it'll just go to the next Kickstarter, and so on. But for my other covers, I usually plan. So like when I have, I usually like lately I've been having 6 covers, plus a sketch cover, so that would, I guess, be 7. The way I do it is I order so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I will go, okay, the standard retail, I order a couple thousand so that I have, plenty on hand because they're the lower priced one. And then as I go up, so I'll go up in price, so like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, as the limit, and I limit them down then to like, so it'd be like 500 print, 300 print, like, or like 6, 5, 4, 3, and then 100, the really rare ones. And then I take them to cons until they're gone, unless they're a specific Kickstarter exclusive. Then I tend to not take those to cons, like I said.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like how I will do it, and that's the more copies and more issues I get out, the more difficult it is to like have them all on the table. So actually, with this next con that I have in February, I'm going to be a little bit more choosy on what I'm taking with me, just to be able to fill. Because now I have 6 issues of Nightwolf and 2 issues of Snowpaw, and I got to make sure I have enough room to put everything out there.
Yeah, it's amazing how the table space suddenly becomes at a premium when you start when the series gets up there.
Right. Yeah.
And then in terms of the plush toy, so you're sort of locked into a minimum. Obviously, if the Kickstarter campaign blew up and you had to go above that minimum, then you make those decisions. But you are locked into a minimum, and the minimum will likely be higher than what you do on the campaign. But you also have future launches in mind,
right?
That you can sell that backstock, and that will also become a really attractive table addition.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like the minimum order was like, okay, well, that's at least I know what I need to hit. Yeah. I actually would love to overfund so I can order more, and then that way I can, like you said, have at the table, have for the next few launches that are planned to be focused around it, and that way I have stock so that I don't have to then go back and try and get more later on. But if I run out, then maybe I'll be able to. Who knows?
Absolutely. So let's dive into this 3D model issue here, because originally when you first conceived this, you sort of, what I loved about it is you were sort of targeting 3 sort of distinct markets for this launch, and it's in that we've got these connecting covers that'll be really attractive to we just collect comics, but we love those sort of high-end variants or really cool niche covers. We've got them covered. We've got the people that love the plush toys or have small kids at home would love to get something cool for them. And then we also have a market that we see awesome huge projects launching every week on Kickstarter in the sort of digital model space. So prior to that concept, you hadn't really had much experience in the digital model space. Can you talk a little bit about the process to get these digital models done, and then what you sort of learned and why you ultimately, and you expand a little bit about why you ultimately said, wait a minute, I'm not going to offer this as an additional thing on this Kickstarter because I've got stuff to figure out still.
Right. Yeah. So again, going back to like my surveys that I put out, that like 3D models or figurines was like one of the highest asked for things. So I was like, all right, well, that seems like a no brainer, right? I'm like, well, they want it, I'll give it to them. And I had seen these campaigns, and I'm like, oh, well, they must be able to produce these, because they're showing physical ones as well as just selling the print files. And so I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. I was like, so it seems like there's a market for this. And so I was like, all right, well, let's do this in supplement, because of thinking that it was actually cheaper to produce the 3D model figurines than the plush. I was like, all right, well, this will be a nice supplemental, so we can run them all together. Then Wolfpack will get both things that they want, and I'll be able to put out, my brother-in-law and a friend of mine both have 3D printers, and I was like, all right, well, I'll have them print them for me. I have connections.
And so before this, like, you went out and you found a 3D modeler that you hired to do.
Yeah, I went to Fiverr, and just kind of I searched their engine for 3D modelers who do like fantasy or werewolves and stuff, and found quite a few that I really liked their models, and then I messaged them. Not all of them responded or timely response or anything, but the one guy who did, and he gave me his rates, and I paid a little bit on a higher end than like some of the other ones were, but I also wanted to pay for the quality, so I wanted to make sure. And as you can see from like the detail of the model that he did, you have the fur, the hackles up, and the detail on, like, even like the sword has a lot of detail to it. So
what's the size on that one?
This one is a 6-inch.
Yeah, that's good.
I also have a scaled version at a 3-inch.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 inches are definitely a lot more affordable, but still more than I was willing to charge, my backers for. Yeah. Which the shocking, so to do like when I was working with my brother-in-law and my friend who to have them printed out, it took a lot of time. Just on their single printer to do one.
So they're sort of hobbyist 3D printers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then so they basically telling me the time put into to printing these, as well as the cost of the resin. I was like, well, it doesn't make sense then for you guys to do this. I don't want to, one, I don't want to take all your time. Two, it's going to cost a lot of money for you and I to produce these and then to try and resell.
So how much time are we talking?
So for this 6-inch, it was I want to say 11 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the 3-inch I believe was like 5 to 8 depending on which model. So, and he at least the smaller ones though, he could get multiple ones on there. But another thing, like, so this is what like one of the 3 inches looks like. I guess they have to like put them on these like stabilizers so that they can print it properly. So that was another thing. If they can get so many on one of the plates or whatever they use to do it, it would save some time. But like as the bigger ones are, you kind of have to do them individually. So I was like, all right, well, instead of driving you guys crazy doing that, I kind of was like, all right, well, next let's research into finding a printer farm, which is basically a company that has multiple printers running 24/7. And even the price quotes that I got for them were like, I think for the 3 inches were like $30 per figure. And then like the 6 inchers were like $80 or more per figure. And I was like, I wouldn't even charge that to anybody, you know what I mean? Like my the way I thought was, okay, well, $20 per 6-inch figure and like, maybe $10 for the 3-inch, that was where my head was at, thinking that that's what, would be reasonable. But the fact that like that's, there's so much more charging per, even like at a print run of 100 each, I was like, okay, we need to find another avenue for this. And so now we're looking into cast molding, it should significantly bring down the price, but I haven't got a quote yet. But just from like my research, that is kind of like how game, like actual game pieces are made and stuff like that. So again, I just got to find out what it will take to make these molds and how much, and because there's different types of molds that I found. There's like silicone molds, there's metal molds. Obviously the metal costs more, but the silicone will run out and you'll have to have more made. So it's kind of like, where do you give and take between the price and the quotes?
Yeah. So it's an interesting world, and I guess it just shows that the more new product categories that you add in, the more details there are to learn. Right now you're a pro at printing comics and offering comics, and you sort of figured all of that. But it reminds you, like, before you get into this, like the idea of like variants and gang printing and offering different, the costs of different kinds of cover types, and
right.
and there's a lot to learn. And so I love that. One, you're experimenting with this stuff. You're listening to the audience, hearing what they want, but then also willing to understand that even if I had a great idea, and even if there are a lot of my people in my fan base that would buy this stuff, don't go and make like a hardy decision and promises about this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Because I could have gone live.
Yeah,
I could have gone live with them, not knowing, the prices, and just been like, oh, well, this is what I'm going to sell them for.
Yeah.
And then come back later and be like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So no, I did not want to do that. I didn't want to go into this blinded. I wanted to have as much information and detail, to make sure that I'm treating the process with respect and not just kind of throwing it out there based on what I saw on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Do you have any other products down the line, like any other ideas, things that maybe you want to research or potentially expand even further beyond 3D models and plush toys, and obviously the comics?
I would love to have a line of action figures. That's kind of like my dream there.
Yeah.
I have like the the custom minifigs,
Yep.
that I've been gathering throughout the last few launches, and those are great. People love them. Another thing is that people, I want to see action figures because as you can see behind me, you can see some of them over there. But up above me, I have like a bunch of my old ones. I have a bunch of new ones in package still. And, so for me, that's always been one of my things is I would love to see one of my characters done as an action figure or even have a line of them. Because, I've been doing apparel, I've been doing comics, and now everything else with the plushie and working with the 3D models. So it's just, again, it's going to be one of those things where it's researching and find out, where, the best avenue to do it. Another thing that I've been thinking about doing is, so I've also been, as stretch goals and milestones, I've been unleashing collector cards of the characters. I think eventually I would love to, once I have a full set of them produced, I would love to like do, package them up and do like the collector's cards and like the little vinyl baggies
Yeah.
and put them out that way.
Yeah. There's so many cool opportunities that for things, and it's important to make sure that there's at least enough of the fan base to support it, because obviously not everyone is gonna jump on everything, but it really is cool when you've got enough of a core group that'll help you make all of those like childhood dreams of things that you've always wanted to create come true.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I want to hear a little bit more about the 2023 launch plans for Lone Wolf Comics. Now that you're adding toys into the mix, but obviously you have the other two series going that need to go on. But what else is coming forward from the brand?
Yeah, so each quarter I plan to do one launch. That's always been kind of a goal for me. I haven't exactly hit it yet. The last couple of years I've been doing 2 launches a year. So this year I think I'm on par to make that actually happen. So right now this quarter I have the first launch with the Voodoo Doll plushie and the connecting covers. And then the next one after that is Nightwolf 7. And then after Nightwolf 7, so that's spring launch. summer launch is going to be a tie between which one goes. So there's Snowpaw 3. And then there's the kids board book that I'm planning with Megan that to kind of accompany the plushie.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a Halloween board book. So it's a Halloween themed book for kids. And that's why I was thinking maybe summer for that one. Because then that by the time it comes out, it could potentially be in hands by Halloween. Or again, it'll depend on who has done the artwork first. So if Mog is finished with issue 3 of Snowpaw before Megan's done with the board book, then obviously it would make more sense to go with Snowpaw.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a photo finish. Whoever's done first.
Yeah. That's we can dream things up, but ultimately the stuff needs to be ready to roll. So
right. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't like going to Kickstarter until things are print ready.
Right. Yeah. It limits the amount of things that can go wrong or other delays that can happen. And conventions. Do you have any conventions coming up?
Yeah. So February, I've been asked to guest at and do panels at the Con Nuga. It's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's going to be my first one. So it's probably the farthest I'm going to have to drive. Which is fine. I'm always up for it. So that's my first one. I have a couple applications into Motor City. I've done it before, but each year you have to kind of reapply. And I haven't done it since before COVID. But I did reapply this year. It's in May, so hopefully that one will happen. I'm definitely in for there's one in November that I'm doing in Akron, which is about an hour, Akron, Ohio. And then there's a couple other. There's Youngstown Comic Con. I believe I'm in that's in July. So Youngstown, Ohio for that one. Those are for sure. Well, the ones that like I said, I've applied to a couple other ones. Haven't heard back. So I'm just trying to fill up right now and. And I definitely plan if I can get into Erie, Pennsylvania. That's another one I'd like to get into. And
definitely,
just in the middle of filling it up.
Well, awesome. Appreciate you coming on and talking about the latest launch. There's 16 days to go as we record this for Nightwolf Voodoo Doll 12 plushie. And the 6 awesome connecting covers for Nightwolf 1 through 6. Thanks so much, Rob, for being here, and best of luck closing out this launch.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for having me.
Not a problem. And for everybody watching at home, thank you for paying attention to what we're doing over here at Comics Launch, and we can't wait to see what you launch next. Take care, everybody.